Welcome back, everybody, for the people who like that. Today's video is going to be about the Pentax Smart function, which Pentax made a big deal about, how they revamped the whole thing. The way you go about utilizing it is different. It's much improved compared to set parameters on the dial. You can basically customize it to whatever your needs are. The nice thing about it is you can assign it to each user mode. So remember, there are not 5, not 6, but 10 user modes that you can set up on the Pentax K-3 Mark III. And within those 10 user modes, you can assign 5 at a time to the mode dial. So, wow, that's actually a lot. You can have 10 different sets of smart functions based on your user modes that you actually set up. So we're going to look at the menu, see what the options are, show you what it looks like through the viewfinder and on the rear LCD, or sorry, on the rear LCD. Show you what the smart function looks like on the rear screen, the touch screen, because you actually can access it either through the viewfinder or on the rear screen, which is nice. And yeah, that's it really. So let's just get into the camera. Okay, so looking at the menu itself, basically you just go in, and from there it's C, so customize controls number 2, and you just go into smart function, and from here is where you get to pick and choose what functions you want enabled in whatever mode you're in. So here we've got exposure compensation, you've got your flash exposure compensation, program line. So let's change some of these. So we'll add, I guess, ISO sensitivity? No. Okay, so we'll leave exposure compensation. Let's see, what else do we have loaded here? So that'll be for slot number 1. So the first function will be EV compensation. Now we'll go to number 2. That's currently set to autofocus hold, which I'll show you what that looks like in the viewfinder. So we've got autofocus hold as number 2. Number 3 is the AA filter simulator. Number 4 is the crop mode. And function number 5 is the grid guide. So there's 5 functions you can set for each user mode. And within some of these that have multiple controls, for example, autofocus hold, you go to info, and you can actually change these in regards to, if you say only use autofocus hold low, you can actually have it so it toggles only between off and low. It won't toggle through the rest, because it does get a little confusing. Say if you have medium, or actually let's do high, medium, low, and off. So when you're actually in the mode, like when you actually press the smart function button, you'll see here when you go to autofocus hold at the top, which you need to use this dial to switch between everything. So we're in autofocus hold. Now you have this. So they're labeled in the viewfinder as 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to remember which one is which I will show you right now, so you have an idea what I'm talking about. So looking through the viewfinder, the square box that you do see there is actually the crop mode, which I can turn off in a sec. But if you look at where it's flashing down at the bottom, just above or between the aperture and ISO auto, you'll see AFH. So that's the autofocus hold status. Now, if you look over to the bottom right, where it has S.Fn, and you see the number 1. So you have to remember 1 is off, 2 is low, 3 is medium, 4 is high. It doesn't actually show you in the viewfinder which one's which, right? So that is one thing that you would have to actually keep in mind, depending on how you actually set this up. Now, to change the modes, you just use the rear E dial. So I want to change to, let me just see here. I want to change to, or turn the crop mode off. So I'm trying to look through the viewfinder here. Okay, so that I think, is that the crop mode? Yeah. So now using the third control dial, you can actually turn the stuff on and off, and you use the, what we normally use as the aperture control dial. So the rear E dial is actually what cycles you through the various different modes. So here you've got the different grids, different grid patterns for the viewfinder, and that's pretty much how the smart function works. Now on the back of the screen on the camera, you can actually see all the different functions. And let's see if I can move this back a little bit there. Just want to show you guys. So you change the actual selections within, like anything that has multiple selections. So for example, the grid, autofocus hold, anti-alias filter on and off, strength, bracketing, that kind of thing, and exposure compensation. You use the third control dial in order to cycle through that specific item's options. And to change which function it is, you use the rear E dial. So again, here is AA filter simulator. So bracketing off, low, high, bracketing off and high, and bracketing off, low, then high. And let's see, and then the autofocus hold status, low, medium, high, and exposure compensation values. So that's pretty much how it works. And inside the viewfinder for exposure compensation, I'll show you what that looks like here. So the exposure compensation in the viewfinder, you don't actually see a change in the viewfinder itself. It's just below the viewfinder where the EV points actually would be. Just off to the bottom right there. And that's really it. I mean, there's a lot you can change. You can even go so far as to actually change the, I believe you can change the autofocus as well. Let's see. You've got flash exposure compensation, program line. So you can choose MTF, depth of field, shallow, depth of field, deep, action, like all that different stuff. White balance settings, all your different drive modes, HDR capture on and off, pixel shift resolution you can throw in there, custom image settings, shake reduction, zoom review, which would pertain to live view, the grid guide, which I showed you, outdoor view setting, which again would be for the rear LCD screen, your user autofocus, the autofocus modes. Here we'll add that one. Okay, so we've got that. Now if I press here, so you've got autofocus continuous and autofocus single. Now let's see if we can change autofocus hold and add autofocus active area. Okay, now let's see. Info. There we go. So spot. So you've got all these different things to cycle through. So in the viewfinder, that would look like this. Okay, so inside the viewfinder with the various autofocus modes or autofocus point selection, so your spot, zone, automatic, select, that kind of thing. This is what it looks like. So right now it's in AFS, as you can see at the bottom. So there you've got your select one, spot, full auto, select one, spot, full auto. And because we're in AFS, that's why the viewfinder is actually blinking. And my other camera just went out of focus. There we go. Now, in regards to, let's change this to our AFC. Okay. Now we're in AFC, and let's go. Okay. So now we're in AFC full auto. And my other camera. Okay, there we go. And that's pretty much really it. So it's a very simple case of setting it up in the menu, assigning it to any of the areas within the camera for the user modes and or the standard mode that you want to use right now. I was doing all that in TAV. So the nice thing is you can set it up for anything. The most beneficial way to do it would be to set it up in regards to an actual assigned user mode. And you also can see the changes here on the LED panel as well. Let's get this focused here. There we go. So the changes that you make actually do show up on the panel. Smart function. Let's see, that's the grid. So it'll tell you grid 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the crop mode, on, off. And which one is this? The AA filter simulator is what that one is. So AA, and it shows you high, and yeah, so I mean, it's not, you don't have to press the button and then rotate anything. You basically just press once, and the nice thing is you can leave it in that mode. So for myself, I generally use the crop. That's usually what I end up using. So I just leave it that way in the crop mode, and I can just easily switch on and off, which I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm not changing anything. I'm literally just moving the dial. So it's already set. I just boom when I need it, off when I don't. So you can actually set it up in a multiple amount of ways, such as actually setting up certain parameters that are specific to landscapes, other parameters that are specific to, say, street photography. If you like the black and white thing, you can set the custom image formats for black and white and have quick access to those while you're shooting. For myself, with the birds in flight and things like that, sometimes I want the extra reach with the 1.3 time crop factor, and some, a quick access way of turning autofocus hold on and off as well. So the camera is, I mean, it's crazy how much customization you can actually have on this camera. But that's pretty much it. That is the Pentax Smart Function and how they've revamped the whole thing from top to bottom. And the more I dive into this camera, the more I can understand why the price was what it was. There's a lot to this system, and a lot of thought has gone into this thing. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. If you like the video, leave a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. It helps me out. If you would like to support the channel, I leave that information at the bottom of the description. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And you will see me on my next video. I'm out.